Okay, good morning. This is Senate Natural Resources and Energy, and it is Friday, February 27th. And we've got a number of bills on the agenda today. So we're going to start with S-138, the commercial pace bill. I'm joined by Mr. Hewitt from the Bankers Association. Welcome.
Good morning.
Good morning.
So I'm on my phone just working off the document that we received earlier this week from Mr. Yahoo, which had some blue lines on it. And three of you asked me to look at the documents, so I'm more than happy to have done that. And I will try and go through this quickly because I know you've got a very, very busy schedule for the day. So in looking at it, I'm going to start on page 1, lines 13 through 21. And this talks about legislative body, town, city, et cetera, by ordinance versus by vote. This is obviously a policy discussion for you folks, and whether it's your draft person or somebody like Tucker Anderson who knows the local government statutes really well, would probably help you navigate what is the appropriate approach for this. I could see where the town, if they were voting to take out a bond, if you will, that I think should go to the voters, probably has to go to the voters. But if you're only authorizing a district and the use of your taxing mechanism, your council can answer the question what's more appropriate. But either way, I think it's good discussion. Page 2, line 3, no comment there as far as relating to energy efficiency. Again, I think that's completely up to you folks, whether you want that level of specificity in there or not. Page 2, line 7, this is the issue of 4 units or less. So clearly, there's been a concentrated discussion on commercial and industrial buildings, but also consideration that a commercial project can be a large-scale residential project. And this sets out a standard, if you will, or a floor that you would not go below because then you're in the residential category. And New Hampshire does something similar. So I don't, if it is the policy intent to provide this to large scale housing projects, then I would add the language that's being proposed because I think that makes sense for you folks.
The nature of refugees.
Yeah.
I think that I remember that Joan Goldstein recommended a tweak to this.
Yes,
that would make it eligible for housing.
And well, she recommended to frame it in the positive that it could include 5 units or more.
Instead of the negative of 4 units.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, either way.
Yeah.
Either way. On page 2, line 13, the language of struck energy savings analysis. We don't really have any comment there. I think that's a question of whether you see it's appropriate to have those words in there or not. Page 2, line 20. It seems like it is removing what could be considered a limit in scope in that first sentence on bottom page 2, line 3, and do you want to have that limiting language, or you just want to leave it open as considered in the other paragraphs below? I think either way you're going to achieve what you'd like to. Page 3, lines 13 and 14. So this is just my observations. This is, in my opinion, a bigger policy question of what are you looking at for local, state, or nationally recognized building standards. We don't have a residential building code per se in Vermont. We have our VES standards. I'm sure we have other standards. So I don't know how important it is or the linkages between in accordance with state, local, nationally recognized building standards. That's not funding, this is
Yeah.
not policy,
That's
but I think this is a much bigger discussion than C-based.
Oh, fully agreed. So at some point in this committee, we should have a long conversation about
Yeah,
building standards and enforcement, energy standards.
on page 4, lines, lines 4 through 13. I know Mr. Yaki spoke about this is something that is important for the credit rating agencies and capital markets. I'm not familiar with why they would need this language in there. It PACE programs by their nature are a first lien priority. We saw that in residential, we see that in other commercial PACE programs. So I don't know how important it is, the signaling that you're sending to the marketplace. But I don't see the harm in having the signal here. If the capital markets and rating agencies feel that's important. When I think of rating agencies, who are we rating here? If the municipalities and taking on the liability financing, it's not impacting their rating. And you're going to the market to get capital, so, and you're not, I don't think you're impacting the state's rating.
I apologize, where are you?
I'm on page 4, lines 4 through 13.
Okay, okay. Thank you.
On page 5, line 3.
Wait, can I stop you?
Sure.
Yeah, so. I wanna make sure I'm understanding the difference between the prioritization for the lien versus the prioritization for the lending, what? There was a whole discussion about
Sure.
that, you were really adamant about,
Yes,
about making sure that the bank approved the ability to do this, so that,
yes, correct,
because they are the lender is the first, what is the right term?
we are the first priority. We are the second priority behind property tax.
Okay, currently, for the lien,
Currently.
for the lien,
Yes,
okay.
property taxes cover any mortgage that would be on the property.
Okay, so it's usually property taxes, the bank,
The bank.
the primary lender, and then a secondary lender like the.
Right, correct.
So this would put, if approved by the bank has to go and say, yes,
Yes.
we added that language.
Correct, you did,
Then it would be property taxes, CPACE,
correct,
if the bank approved, then the bank, then VITA.
Correct.
So,
which is why that consent is so important.
right, and the consent is really to, the bank can look at whether or not they feel like the risk is too high to lend this.
To allow that priority lien to sit in front of their mortgage.
Right, and if the finances are not in order, it might be too risky for the bank to
Correct.
say yes, okay.
But the whole premise of C-base is that you're using that priority lien mechanism in order to recapture the funding that's been. put
Okay.
there. That's
So this is,
residential neighborhood.
this for Yaki might feel like a sort of belts and suspenders thing, but
That's a fair statement.
from your perspective, it's not necessary because the whole point of the program is to allow.
Yeah, this language here would in no way impact the language that you put in the bill regarding lender consent.
Okay,
Because this isn't triggered unless lender consent is given.
okay, okay. Okay.
Page 5, line 3, I would agree that it makes sense for whoever is the contractor to provide the information regarding the program, access to capital, et cetera. It shouldn't be the municipality. I think, again, you're only asking the municipality to agree to allow their lien priority mechanism.
Sorry, so you page 5, line 3,
Page 5, line 3.
you're agreeing with the strike.
I would agree with striking
Yeah.
municipality
Okay.
and just say, and maybe it's not the capital provider, maybe it's the administrator of the program who's providing capital, but I agree, it's not the municipality.
Yeah.
Because I think you expressed enough hesitation about the ability of municipalities to do this on their own. Page lines 10 through 18. I would agree with striking the language based on the comments that Mr. Yaki provided. There could be some proprietary information that is contained in those documents from a business modeling perspective, an investment perspective that you wouldn't want that a business would not want in the public records. I also agree with his comment that anybody who's looking at buying that property, future purchase, should be doing a level of due diligence to understand what those improvements were, how those improvements are providing a lower cost to running that property, et cetera. So I see it more on that side than putting it in the public records. The lien has to be recorded for sure in the records, but I'm not sure you want to get into detailed analysis or agreeing or the unless there's a general framework of the agreement that makes sense, but I think it does run the risk of proprietary information.
So the agreement would be there would still be an agreement. It's
Correct.
just that it wouldn't be part of the municipal records that.
Yeah, well, I was focusing more on the analysis performed, et cetera, application of municipality, disclosure, that kind. Again, I think that's where you start, if you get the more detailed information you're getting in the land records, the more the risk is of opening it up to proprietary information or investment strategies that a business would not want. So the agreement is fine, it may be all of the addendums to the agreement that might not make sense.
Okay.
And then on page 7, line 13. However you choose to call it, whether it's a program administrator, whether it's an entity, I would absolutely agree. I would take agency out because I think that has a connotation of a governmental agency or quasi-governmental agency. It may be just a for-profit entity that decides to do this. So I would agree with this language on referring to entity and taking and using program administrator. On page 8, lines 12 through 19. I did not see any problems with what was being recommended there as far as removal of some of the language and the addition of the language. I think that's all fine to be in there. Page 9, lines 3 through. I'm sorry.
Yep. So on lines 5 through 17, that was for his paragraph 2. Why would it be one or more third parties? Why would it be more than one third party? I understand.
That's a good call. I've been really focusing on that. You, again, my opinion, you want one contractor.
Yeah.
You don't want multiple parties that are involved. So you got the municipality, the business, and the contractor running the program.
Yeah.
Unless he's referring to something else here, but yeah, I think that would be very complicated and not useful.
Yeah.
Page 9, lines 3 through 9. My suggestion is not putting that in there unless you have clearance from VEDA to do so. I think that as you alluded to, Madam Chair, in a side conversation you and I had, and then I also spoke with VEDA, I think they're kind of walking into this lightly and seeing from their perspective as a lender, is there a role for them? And then as that develops, does it make sense for them to throw their hat in the ring as a program administrator? That does mean for municipalities to get this off the ground, they need to look for another administrator. And maybe those are done on a yearly contract, which is for 2 years and it's reopened for other bidders to come in. But I would suspect that Viva will not want this light in here.
You were right.
And then page 9, and this is my last one, lines 12 through 15. Oh, okay. Yeah, so I don't envision pizza parties being thrown. But I think that it is a legitimate question as to the reasonable fees or costs associated with operating a program, whether it's on the municipal side, working with that independent contractor. I'm not sure how to structure that in the bill, whether it needs a little bit more in the way of guardrails, but I didn't see the pizza party component to it, but there shouldn't be outrageous fees that are covering unrelated costs and expenses to the program.
So. So you are okay with his suggested change?
I probably didn't answer the question.
Right.
I mean,
It's like, okay, now.
trying to get out of here.
You'd be very efficient, really efficient.
Yeah, I mean, I would be fine with his language notwithstanding its ability church fees to cover the operating costs under the section. I think that's fine.
Okay,
Hopefully that gets you slightly closer.
And wait, the thing we just talked about,
Oh,
yeah.
So, I'm sure, I think you've heard from 2 parties that are in this field that provide services to municipalities for developing a program and financing, et cetera. And my guess is there's probably more. And how do municipalities, some will, some will not, in their capacity, are they able to vet those different providers out there and determine who's the right one and maybe use? And we were just talking of whether it was DPS or Senator Hardy said CFR, Department of Financial Regulation. If there's somebody who can help with that vetting process or general review, because that is a significant task for a municipality to look at. And I'll give you an example in the world of land records. Couple of years ago, the SARA, who has the responsibility for public records, historic documents, et cetera, at the state levels through the Secretary of State's office, went through a similar process for digital recording of documents in the land records. And they did the RFP and had a bunch of vendors apply, and they went through the vetting process on behalf of the municipalities. And then they went out to the municipalities and said, this is who we've contracted with. It doesn't mean you have to, but we've done all of that due diligence. And that was a motivator for some municipalities to say, oh, okay, I now don't have to go through all that rigmarole. You guys have put your stamp of approval on it. That's the only analogy I can think of that may be worth exploring here for the municipalities.
I'm hopeful that they will be up for doing that, because that seems like a good solution.
Yeah.
To this, to the oversight question.
Yeah, and just for the record, I'm not volunteering either one of those.
Yes,
I'm
yes.
identifying likely people to talk to.
Super.
Great.
Well, thank you so much.
Of course.
Really appreciate it.
No problem, anytime. Thank you. Good luck.
Thank you. Okay, we're moving on to S213. We have, I think, a new draft and So we're gonna go through the changes and we're ready to vote. Good morning.
Good morning. Morning.
Pretty good, how are you? Happy Friday. Happy Friday before Christmas.
Should I begin?
Yes, go for it.
So the only change here is on page 3. It's in that language about the Cybersecurity Advisory Council. You wanted upon the request of the secretary, that the council shall develop non-binding guidance for the public water systems regarding generally accepted cybersecurity practices, including information relevant to metering systems and customer data. But then on its own motion, the council may at any time issue guidance for public water systems regarding generally accepted cybersecurity practices. And then, because of the sentence structure, the council may issue guidance and issues under the subsection as part of its annual report.
This is not something that I want to change right now. It's just, because I think it's fine. But, so page 3, line 18, just that sentence structure. So at the very last, the council may issue guidance that issues. Seems a little redundant. But that is not a big enough deal that
You could just say council may issue guidance under the subsection as part of its annual report. That.
But
2 words.
I don't think it
Well, we can do it plus we have 2 words.
Yeah.
issue
Yeah, you
guidance.
can just vote contingent on this.
Yes,
Issue guidance under the subsection. Yeah.
yeah. Waiting for the. Okay. Super.
I move that we approve, or favorably on 5, that's 233 draft 5.1, 326, 1049, with that, I can change crossing out the words big issues on page 3, line 19.
Super. Any further discussion? Okay, with that, the clerk can call the roll.
Okay, Senator Beck, yes, Senator Baumgart,
Yes.
Senator Hardy,
Yes.
Senator Williams,
Yes.
Senator Watson.
Yes,
5-0.
super. And reporting this, Senator Hardy, thank you so much.
You have to put the chat on the board.
Welcome.
So it's the third one.
It's the third
It's
one.
it's the gap there. Yay.
We're getting there.
Getting there. Okay. So log that one away. All right, super. So we are gonna move right along. That was fast.
We might have time to continue.
To 224.
Again, like Grady, let's council, you should have in front of you draft number 7.1, 226 date and pretty differences timestamps. Should I just focus on the
Yes.
so you can go to page 17.
Oh, still with
And that is in that reference to the implementation requirements of section 1454. It is also legal and proper disposal of cloud nuisance species.
Great.
Good. Moving on to page 21. Again, referencing the on line 8, referencing the requirements of 1454, legal and proper disposal of cloud nuisance species. And then should move on.
Yes.
Page 24. This is, you're in the pitching requirements now. This is the first change It's just really a clarification, page 24, line 16, that it's an application for a permit to hold fishing tournament. Then page 24, line 19, this is the provisions about the notice. So the department shall require an applicant for a permit for a fishing tournament supposed to be held in fewer than 5 inland lakes. The term on the application form with the legislative body of the municipality. Municipalities in this tournament is proposed. Have been notified of the tournament by the tournament organizer. Notice may be provided to the legislative body by regular mail or electronic. Department is authorized to verify that an applicant for permits for fishing tournament proposed to be held on fewer than 5 inland lakes, notify the legislative body of the municipality or municipalities for the tournament. Now, if an applicant for fishing tournament permit proposes to hold a tournament on more than 5 inland lakes, the department shall post a notice of the tournament on the department's website.
We'll pause here because. On page 24, line 20. There's this rule for fewer than 5 lakes. Which means 4 or less, and then when we get to. Page 25, line 5. Oh, no, wait,
So should 2A be, should say 5 or fewer than these. That was the intent, I think.
5 or fewer.
Yeah.
We went from 10 to 5.
no, there was,
Yeah.
maybe I was in.
Wait a minute,
Wait a minute.
where are you?
On page, line 9 and is where you're gonna make your
Oh,
point.
yes, thank you.
Yeah.
Say 5 or more.
Yes,
Then it leaves out
5, thank you. Thank you for, okay, where to go?
It's a gov ops situation.
It's very good, absolutely.
5 or more, that means 4 or less.
Right, there's a conflict there. Well,
It's,
I don't know.
it's a point.
5.
yeah, it's 6
The
or
idea
more
was-
that we
The
want.
idea was up to 5, you do it.
Or
This
just,
was even more than 5 and on page 19 should be 5 or 5.
Yes.
I thought you wanted. When it was 5 or more to be on the department's website, now you're saying it's.
More than 5. yeah, that's what I think. 5 is the limit for having to do.
If it
notice.
makes us in the case, we were not clear.
I don't have strong opinions about whether it's 5 or 6. I just want to make sure that we have not left out a number.
Right, exactly.
Yes,
So I missed it somewhere, but we originally started talking about inland lakes and ponds that were municipal water.
yes,
Are we still talking about that?
not,
This is all fishing. Right?
Yes,
yes. But if it's just right,
so you still need a permit for any fishing tournament, regardless of whether it's inland lake or.
No, which they do. But we originally started talking about those lakes and ponds and so that were municipal waters.
That's right, and there's a subsequent section that is focused on that as well.
Okay, in this book.
In this bill.
Okay,
What can I had written, and now I'm having a hard time finding in the new draft, but. In relation to the permit, the source protection area permit.
Yeah,
Where's
that's
that
on the
line?
language on page 25.
Oh, we haven't gotten there yet?
No, yeah.
Okay, sorry.
okay,
So here's the language for that. If an application for a fishing tournament permit under this section proposes a fishing tournament on an inland lake. The department shall not issue a permit for the tournament if the inland lake on which the tournament is proposed serves as a source for a public water system permitted under section 1675 of the style. This is a condition of a public water system. Fishing is prohibited within the source protection area of the public water system. So this is the surface water source protection areas. There are 3 zones. The first zone is within 20 feet of the intake. The second zone is within 200 feet of the water. and is limited to a maximum extent of 17,000 acres. And the third zone is pretty much the entire watershed. So you will see conditions per zone.
Mhm.
But I wanted you to know that in case someone says, hey, you're saying that there's no fishing in the entire watershed of this lake. It's like, no, it's the condition that's in the permit for the zone.
And sorry, so the fishing could potentially be prohibited in one of those zones,
Yes,
but not
not it.
the all
It's likely never gonna be prohibited. So
in zone three. And can you just say it again? So the first zone is how many feet?
First zone is in an area immediately around the drinking water withdrawal site. This area is generally 200 feet around the intake. I think I said 20 before, but it's 200. And then zone 2 consists of areas within the watershed located within 200 feet of the perennial surface water. So that's the surrounding land. The first is the intake.
Mhm.
And the next is the surrounding land, 200 feet. And then the third is the remaining watershed area outside zones 1 and 2, where the land uses that potential to impact drinking water quantity and quality.
Okay.
Can I ask a question? So, with this language. Is that if fishing is only prohibited in zone 1?
You still have potential for allowing fishing on zone 2.
Right, so this I don't think covers that.
I don't know, that's why I'm.
Yeah, exactly, because if it's only zone 1 and there's a fishing derby. That uses just zone 2,
Mhm.
then. Shouldn't it be based on whatever the conditions are in the permit? So if the permit conditions are, you can't fish in zone 1. But zone 2 is okay.
Mhm.
Well, that's basically what this is. If there's a condition of the public water system permit that fishing is prohibited. That they can't permit.
Right, so it just says shall not issue a permit for the tournament. What if they issued a permit saying you can have the tournament, you just can't go into zone 1?
I don't know where zone 1 is.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Who's marking?
Who's marking what
As a
zone?
municipality required market,
Well, to me, that would not be following the language of the statute. Because it says shall not issue a permit for the tournament within the lake
Right, so that's. Sorry.
as a condition that fishing is prohibited.
Right, so I think we need to decide, is that what we mean?
Well, it doesn't say shall not issue a permit for the source protection area where there is a condition. It says shall not issue a permit for the tournament if the inland lake.
Right, but didn't you just say the inland lake could have a source protection? Permit that says you can't fish in zone 1,
Yeah.
but you can fish in zone 2.
Yes,
And this would just say if it has any part of
as a
zones
condition, it's gonna be prohibited.
on all of the lake.
Yeah.
So that's my question, is that what we want?
Seems to me that we're aiming for it to just be in compliance with the. With the drinking. What is it, the drinking source water protection, drinking.
Okay,
You're the one that brought it.
I know. So.
I mean, we all know that water moves, but
Right, well, and if it's not marked, how would anybody know?
Right.
So if there's no good way to
Right.
tell, then maybe it makes sense for it to be the whole lake,
Yeah.
but if it's. It's more narrow if we say. That the fishing permit must. Reflect. The conditions of the source protection.
yeah.
So I don't have a map in front of me, but I'm thinking about the original issue and the body of water that brought this all up. Being not knowing where zone 2 is on this particular body of water, does that mean you can't fish on that body of water? I think it does. Because if it does, then.
If there's a prohibition in zone 2, then yeah, you are more than likely not going to be able to fish in the water.
But we're not changing that one way or the other.
Right, that's already current law.
We're not touching that. See, who it is to say, we don't want to make it harder for people fishing groups. That's not the intent here. It's just to protect.
So what you are changing is the department's interpretation that they can't restrict fishing on public trust waters. And so what you're saying is, yes, you can, because there is a restriction elsewhere under statute.
Yeah.
We just,
But the scope of that. That's why I brought this, that you understood what the scope was.
so we're trying to get to is the permit is reflecting
The conditions
the
are.
conditions, which is really not a change per se, just making clear that they can't do that.
Making sure that there's, in a way, this is about communication. Is the Fish and Wildlife Department been checking to see if there's a source protection plan and what are the conditions, are they looking at the conditions? Certainly want them to be checking those conditions.
So just to clarify, you want it's not that the permit would be necessarily prohibited. It's that if they issue the permit, well, then it might be prohibited. I'm gonna have to think through how to do this. Sorry.
No, that's okay, because I think that. I'm agreeing with what you're saying is that, and I think it's that we want to prohibit fishing on the areas where it's prohibited. We want to prohibit a derby on the areas where fishing is prohibited in the source protection plan. But if there's a way to have the derby in the areas where it's not prohibited, then that would be okay.
Okay.
I mean, it's hard to tell where that line is and what, but I think that would be something that
Yeah, I mean,
Fish and
this,
Wildlife would have to be there to enforce it and say, no, you can't go on this part of the lake.
There's usually an intake structure that on the lakes, you don't see that on Lake Champlain or Mount Mega. But there's usually an intake structure.
Yeah.
Okay. Sounds like we're not gonna be voting this one out today. And which is
I don't.
okay.
I can't make that change. I can't guarantee I can make that change.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you have to think about it.
so like I said,
Yes,
so
sure.
when I remember the map. The parking where the actual distance to park to get to those areas, that's around zone 3, down to. So they could park there, but they'd have to take a bus for where they could fish.
Mhm.
Well, that's not one of them.
I think I'm not following your.
No, well, I'm saying that, if the road around that body of water. Is where people park for the fishing gear, because there's not much parking at the access.
Yeah.
Are you talking specifically about Dick's
Yeah.
Pond?
Yeah,
Okay, well, the source protection area for the source protection plan for Dick's Pond, does anyone know what it says on there? Would you happen to look that up?
For
For
that,
Dick's
no.
Reservoir?
because I can see the department having to do the bad guy saying, oh, well, here's the map, this is zone. You can't do anything here.
Well. What your comment is making me think about is how, my assumption is that the permit is like, it's either a yes or a no.
Right.
It's not, it doesn't necessarily work, this is a question, it doesn't necessarily bake in conditions like. You can have this permit so long as you stay over here. Like that, it doesn't say something. it
Well,
would,
that's what you're kind of saying in zone one.
right,
Um,
Yeah,
so,
I get,
they can have the permit, but they have to stay outside of that zone one area.
and can they specify that in the permit? Or is that,
Yeah,
okay, oh, okay, so, all right.
Condition.
They can
That's
have a
what the
condition.
permit is,
Yeah.
it's like you have to
Yeah,
follow
yeah.
these
So that-
conditions
that's-
to be allowed to do this.
that's why I have to, I don't even know how. to
Sorry.
write this.
But you understand what we're trying to get at, okay?
Okay. Thank you. So that continued. Anything else
Well, just,
that
did you see the definition of inland lake before?
we did?
Yeah, so I think that was the last thing you wanted to know, and that's it.
Oh, and that's the made was shall. Okay.
Oh, yeah, yeah, that's.
Okay,
Okay, we're getting close, how are we? Are you?
Good. Not the-
oh, tell me more.
Getting up with the fishing? On the fishing part?
Which part
I
specifically,
just don't know how it's gonna work.
which parts that's.
Just the part about zones.
Oh, the goal we
that,
just talked
the
about?
one we just talked about?
Oh, so yet to be told. So we'll see some new language and see how you feel about it.
Is there a way to find out? How many of these lakes have source protection items permit?
I'm sure, so I'm sure, Ben Montrose would know that information.
Yeah,
I can reach out to them.
Yeah, that would be great.
I mean, it'd just be interesting to see how many lakes this impacts, if it's only a few or if it's hundreds. Whatever.
How many inland lakes have a restriction on fishing in their swimming fishing?
Well, and you were wondering about just how many have source protection plans in general,
Right.
or
Well, just, I mean, specifically
With
with prohibition of fishing.
Well, they don't prohibit fishing there now, they'll have to just build houses, they're built.
well, but that's.
No,
sufficient, right?
because we're not changing the source protection plan, so that's current law.
Okay,
So what I think the intent is that if there is a prohibition in the source protection plan that already exists. They can't have a derby there.
Mhm. And the municipality doesn't get to make that choice of their own. They're not
Yeah.
the ones who get to decide their own source protection plan.
Right, A and R has to approve, but there's a possibility that in the future, the permit expires and then is renewed and the municipality petitions for a restriction in the future. But that will be part of the public process.
So we're not saying the municipality has to decide, and we're not changing. Whether you can fish on a lake.
we find out.
Which from, right, how many source protection, surface source protection units have a limitation on fishes.
And the other stuff about fishing is mostly just notification,
Right.
just like you're having a derby, you gotta tell people you're having a
I
derby.
don't have a problem.
Okay.
The other factor there for me is not just a prohibition on fishing, but vessels and types of vessels, because if a derby proposes to have, let's. Say that they're anticipating that there would be vessels, but that's prohibited on the source protection plan in say zone 1. Then it's not necessarily the prohibition on fishing, because maybe you just have a pier, but it's about the mechanisms as well. I realize that makes it more complicated.
Yeah.
As an ask, but that's.
Want that
Where,
reflected in the language?
sorry, say again.
Do you want that reflected in the?
Well, I'm hoping that we could capture it, just in a general sense, to be
Yeah.
like, these are the conditions, like whatever you issue for the permit must match. Or, I use the word reflect, I'm sure it's a better word than that, but, has to take into account the conditions of the source protection.
Yeah,
Actually, I really like that.
yeah,
So,
yeah,
Because if they allow fishing from the side of the.
Then that's fine,
neighbors, then that's fine.
that's fine,
And
yeah,
it's just that we're just worried about mostly gasoline.
Yeah.
And drinking water.
or, if there's no. Ice shanties, if there's no,
Yeah.
structures.
Yeah.
allowed on the X, then,
I think we're on some.
Then-
But
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you get that, Michael?
I do,
Okay.
and not with the current language, but.
Exactly, that's why I asked about it.
Guys, we talked about it,
yes,
Yeah.
the snowmobiles
There's-
and ATVs.
yes, right,
Yeah.
they have to work together, yeah.
But
Okay.
you be careful about this being discriminating against older fishermen that. You know, can't walk out to their favorite fishing level would be. The discriminatory, you know,
Want that to still
yes,
happen.
we won't put that.
Yeah,
So just off of the top of my head, just putting this out. I think it's changing from a prohibition, it says. When the secretary reviews an application for a fishing tournament on. An inland lake, the commissioner shall determine whether or not. There are conditions in the source for the public water system has a source protection area
Right.
with conditions on use. If there are conditions on use, the commissioner shall reflect those conditions in the permit
Right.
issued to the tournament, including potentially denial of the permit. If the conditions prohibit fishing.
Mhm.
Right.
This thing, watch this tape because you just said it.
Well, and the last sentence though, because it's, in my mind, it's not just the fish, like the act of fishing,
Right.
it's. It's that there's no, if there's a prohibition on vessels.
It's the
No, that's-
conditions of the. Prohibit the use of the water. For the proposed use.
Yes, right.
And then we talked about, marking those areas. I mean, wintertime, you could do it with a, thing says zone A, or
Mhm.
no, don't go here, but it applies not only to
Yeah,
winter, but somebody can put signs up, that identifies zones.
well, that's interesting. Okay, thank you. Right, so our next, well, it's actually just to, before we move on from that, anticipating that we'll get another new draft of this, we're closing in, which is encouraging. And we'll schedule that for probably early
Sure.
next week when we're back,
Yeah.
ideally, oh, sorry, right, after break. Ideally, Jude will see if we can try to figure that out for Tuesday, but you know, the sooner we can get that.
Yeah, I understand.
Yeah, okay,
I'll
thank you
do it.
so much.
There are not fees or appropriations in the bill, or were there at the beginning?
I think we talked about this going to finance. and I can't
It's
remember-
probably gonna go to finance.
Okay,
It. It depends on what the Senate Secretary thinks of the signage and outreach requirements, it's gonna go to approach. And then. I wouldn't bring it up to them. Okay.
he's watching right now.
Well, okay, so I was gonna think about, August, they have an extra week, so.
Yeah,
That'll be fun, as long as the other factor is that, I mean, I did present in transportation, did you present in transportation yet?
I'm supposed to go, but I think it just got canceled.
All of transportation sorry? Oh, your testimony,
Yeah,
yeah, interesting, okay, well, there's one possibility was that they might wanna look at it. Don't know if that means possession or not, but if that was gonna be the case, then.
We'll avoid that.
Yes, would love to. And actually, well, I'm gonna connect with the chair about that today, see. Like. Yes, but I do think it's gonna go to. Finance, at the very least.
Okay, well, it's got an iron there,
Yes.
more fishing.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
transportation.
Okay,
Have a good break.
Because
thank you. Okay, so our next witness is not until 10:30, so we have some time. So we're gonna take a break. Okay,
Yeah.
get right over, here we go, okay.
We're live now, so, but yes, if you have suggestions for the language, please let us know.
Okay, all right, this is Senate Natural Resources and Energy coming back from a quick, so relatively quick break, I suppose. And we are taking up S 219 and we're joined by Alec Ganchek. How did I say your name? Okay, great, yes.
Can we just get the new copy
Well-
while we're?
You can, but she has the.
I know, but I think he,
If you wanna
was
speak to us.
speaking to it, and so have it would be.
Yeah.
Like,
Excuse me.
I just gave it.
Oh, okay.
Cause
Cause I just barely. It's like the cop.
He's seen earlier drafts stuff, he just hasn't seen this latest one.
Hey. Super.
And I actually don't have it because I gave mine.
Yeah, I don't have another one.
Oh, okay.
It's posted now.
Oh, it's posted, I can.
Super,
Fill
well,
out,
welcome.
take a minute.
Thank you, excuse me, I apologize, I was traveling all day yesterday. My voice,
Okay.
so. Please don't hesitate to ask me to repeat things if I'm unclear, So I'm here to talk about energy navigators. In the context of the 219, but also just in sort of some more general context around what the department has experienced and what some other state agencies have experienced with navigators, or they go by many names. I guess I shouldn't just call them navigators, but sort of solution providers within the retail program space. And so to begin with, I think I don't have much to say. I think having looked through the draft, I think the language looks consistent with what we spoke about earlier. So I think from a logistics standpoint, this all makes sense. And I guess it's important in that point to bring up the context sort of where the department is. So I guess at the beginning of 2025, pursuant to Act 142, the PUC was engaged to develop a report on affordability and various strategies, chief among them. Low income rates were looked at very closely, and then also sort of programmatic approaches that might be appropriate to address energy affordability. And so the department testified, provided a number of recommendations, and of which one of them was some type of navigator program would help sort of bridge the gaps and leverage the synergies that exist between the myriad programs that are available to address energy affordability. I think there's a list we compiled for that report that's approximately 100 programs that touch affordability in some way, and that runs the gamut from the traditional energy efficiency programs that the EEUs run, the tier 3 programs that the distribution utilities run, as well as the sort of more social programs that CAP agencies run, the Office of Economic Opportunities Weatherization for low income folks. There's, as I said, a lot of programs. So there's the navigator models that have been tried have been targeted at various sort of niche applications in various places where needs have arisen, and it's sort of flowed kind of organically that way. But I think one thing that one of the major experiences that the current iteration of navigators, which I think is funded, was just been recently stopped, but was being funded through grants that were administered by the Agency of Natural Resources. And so I don't want to speak for them, they may have more to say about this, but generally speaking, I think the feeling was that these navigator programs were administered by the CAP agencies. They were targeted mostly at low income folks, and their feeling was there just wasn't enough money available to make it worthwhile to try to connect the dots. There just, there wasn't enough resource to point people towards to make this worth it. And so part of our recommendation was to maybe expand the scope of what navigators actually look at. And I think we agree with that assessment that the low income population has a lot of comprehensive, dedicated, focused offerings. Obviously, could always use more money. That's never not going to be a thing. But in terms of the process and how folks are moved through those programs, it's very turnkey. there's lots of support, there's, relative to the project, there's a lot of funding available, and so. We felt the best place to actually focus these would be on the next tier of folks who don't have those same opportunities, someone who. Made a little bit too much money last year and doesn't qualify for the low income program, and then is sort of forced into this next tier of low to moderate income, which has far less guardrails and far less guidance. And it's not that there aren't resources, but they're just, they're much more siloed, and there isn't this sort of overarching approach that would help someone say. They may be aware of a program and they're interested in participating, so they want to get a heat pump or something like that. There are resources to help them navigate the heat pump program. But there is no one to help them sit down and say, well, have you thought about weatherization, or have you looked at some other things? Has someone done an assessment of your own? All of those pieces are sort of missing at this point, or they exist, but again, they're in other silos. And so that program, the person who's interested in participating would then have to go seek out each one of those silos on their own. And similarly, they would, the income requirements would necessitate them possibly putting up some of their own money, and there's, other barriers that would make it difficult or potentially prohibitive for them to participate in a way that would be more comprehensive, something more akin to what low income customers are like. And so in that context, our recommendation was, let's do an assessment first of all of the programs. Let's take stock of where we are so that we understand really where the gaps and overlaps and the key opportunities are. Because I think a lot of these programs are not really even under the purview of the department, and so we don't have we understand the efficiency programs, we understand the tier 3 programs very well, but we don't have as good of a view into some of the cap agency programs. We do work with Office of Economic Opportunity, but again, there are some differences in how those programs are administered. And so our assessment was, let's, Navigator seems like a good tool, and it definitely has worked. There's ample evidence from around the region, other jurisdictions across the United States that employ similar models to varying degrees of success, but generally they're pretty successful. And so we thought this could be a good tool, but first let's take stock of what the full picture is and figure out where best to deploy these in this sort of a second phase. So that's basically what the language of the bill suggests. I think the department is very supportive of that.
That's great. Yes.
Well, thanks for being keen to take this on and add it to what your report that you're doing. Yeah,
I guess I should have mentioned.
yeah, that you want to talk about
Yeah,
that.
so we are actually like well on our way into this process of doing this assessment. We have an RFP that will be in the street next week. So we've got some grant funding and some other sources of funding. We've kind of called them together to do this. We expect the process to run anywhere from maybe 8 to 10 months. So we're looking at something probably towards the end of the year. And I think that the date change for the completion of the Navigator program design, I think works well with that. I was a little concerned with the stage.
Yeah.
Little bit compressed. I think we maybe could have done it, but I just want to make sure that we don't, do a short trip to the development of a program design. And I think again is something that is needed. But exactly where and how and what that looks like, I think it's still the hard thing.
So just.
I just wanted to follow up and ask about the funding and whether you have sufficient funding to do what you're doing.
I think at this point, the department can't support any additional funding that's not in the current budget. So I think that's sort of a hard stop there. But I take your point. I think naming an unfunded study or program design can be challenging. I would say that as part of our program review process, navigators will be something that's looked at. It's not going to be a fully fledged program design that comes out of this program review, but it certainly will be key among the recommendations of sort of these two approaches. And it could be other things too. Just something navigators or maybe
Right.
other communities and areas for development of additional programs or tools.
Mhm.
And so. So I think, yes, I share your concern of a lack of funding for this, but I also think that, given the department's priority for this and given the fact that we were able to get money from 3 grants and other state agencies that were also interested in this, I think over the next 8 to 10 months, we can explore how much these are funding.
Okay.
Yes.
Do you have a sense of how much you might have to raise to do it?
It's a good question. This, the short answer is no. I think, this program review is, far exceeds the scope of any of the sort of traditional process or impact evaluations that we typically do on a portfolio of programs. There are additional key questions that's going well outside the bounds of sort of the traditional cost effectiveness metrics and impact metrics. Minimum performance requirements and things like that we would expect of the EEU programs. And so I think there's a bit of an unknown in terms of how we're going to normalize all of that into sort of a consistent rubric or stack everything up. And so in that vein, it's hard for me to say exactly how much I think this will cost. I think if, a typical program design for a single program, I've spoken with a couple of consultants who, as part of our RFI process for this RFP, anywhere from $20,000 to $50,000, depending on complexity. If this is going to be something that has to be across 100 programs, for example, not that that may not be the case, but that would be something considerably more complicated than if it was just going to try to stitch together 2 or 3 channels.
So something that I think I heard you say is that, so the Energy Navigator, as an idea is sort of in the scope of what you're already doing, but that this bill would expand that and perhaps make it a more full-fledged, with details and like how it could really work. Is that's a fair way to put it? So if we are, if we're interested in having a more, detailed or developed plan for what an Energy Navigator program could look like, this is a good tool, the good vehicle to get that map.
Yes,
Okay.
I would agree.
Okay, great. Separate from that, I'm very interested in this chart, this list that you're compiling, and I'm wondering about. So this is supposed to be, is the whole thing? I mean, this is a question I suppose I can ask our legislative council as well, but for this report that you're doing, is it due on March 27th, in March 27th?
I guess we'll call the phase 1 sort of before the program review. That is, we're anticipating that to come in probably the second, either first or second week of November.
Of this year.
Yes.
It's great. And so as a part of, I'm envisioning it as a chart. I can't remember if you actually sent it with the chart.
I think that is one of the deliverables we outlined, but it's going to be, there will be sort of a quality or a quantitative scoring matrix and then a qualitative component with sort of best practices.
Okay, because I mean, the chart that I am like envisioning, that I'm gonna sure I'm sure it's already well underway, and that my hopes and dreams for that chart is not something that you can necessarily just pivot to do. But I mean, the part that I would love is like program. How much could it save somebody? Like, so like the dollars, the value of that program to either an individual or to the state, right? And then greenhouse gas reduction, and then energy, and I suppose just straight up energy savings. Does that make sense? Is that sort of,
yes,
are those columns that are gonna be in that chart?
So that will be included. I think it'll also include things like, what are the performance metrics associated with this program? How well does it hit those metrics? Does it exceed them? Does it fail to? From a sort of cost effectiveness standpoint, how well
Yes, oh my gosh, like as a return. Oh my gosh.
Right, and not only for the state, sort of the Vermont perspective, or in some cases might be a grid or sort of whatever the particular industry we're looking at, but also for the participant, I think that's gonna be a key metric as well. So there'll be, there's a list of something like, I don't know, 15 or 16 different key performance indicators associated with all the various programs. So
It's great.
they'll all be there, and then there'll be, the challenge will be to figure out the way to sort of make that all apples to apples. That's
It's great. Look forward to seeing that chart. It's gonna be awesome.
right. It is, I think it's gonna be key input for a lot of future effort by the department. I think it's, we're already talking about how it's integrated with the comprehensive energy plan and set baselines and some of the DRP discussions. So I think it's gonna be pretty important.
Okay. Fabulous. Any other questions? Okay, super, thank you.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Alan's gonna go through the bill with us if you wanna stick around.
Yeah, sure.
Yes. Okay,
Yeah.
Thank you.
thank you. All right, so we'll invite up our legislative council to walk us through the bill.
Ellen Tchaikovsky, Office of Legislative Counsel. So S 219, you have today draft 1.3, which is the first draft you are seeing. The changes from the underlying bill as introduced are highlighted in yellow. I suspect you just heard what these changes entailed. But the bill is fairly short, so I'll read it to you. So Energy Navigator Program Report. The Department of Public Service shall contract with a third-party consultant to design a Vermont community-based home energy navigator and coaching program in collaboration with the Climate Action Center for Addison County and other existing community-based energy navigator programs in Vermont that will provide in-person and remote energy coaching services to residential consumers and communities statewide. The department's consultant shall build on findings from the department's comprehensive process and performance evaluation of more than 100 publicly funded energy programs focused on affordability, including electric and thermal efficiency, weatherization for customers with low income, and beneficial electrification initiatives to inform the design of a Vermont community-based home energy navigator and coaching program. The department's consultants shall consult with Efficiency Vermont, Vermont State Energy Office, the Vermont Climate Action Office, Vermont's Community Action Agencies, on page 2, Vermont Energy and Climate Action Network, Vermont's electric utilities, community-based home energy navigator and coaching programs, and other states, including Connecticut, Massachusetts, that have experience with community-based home energy programs. For purposes of this section, residential consumers includes homeowners, landlords, and renters. The rest of the program design hasn't changed. Do you want me to read through that?
I don't think we need to, well, it's short.
Sure.
Let's do it.
It's fine.
Yeah, okay.
So on page 2, subsection B, the program shall provide guidance to residential consumers, particularly those with low and moderate incomes, to better understand and navigate energy efficiency and clean energy investment options to affordably meet their home energy needs. Advise residential consumers on assessing and on accessing available grants, rebates, financing, and other assistance programs and incentives to meet their home energy needs. Assist residential consumers in prioritizing identified energy saving opportunities, including through the integration of weatherization strategies to reduce heating and cooling loads that could minimize the need for installation of new equipment and lower future electric demands on the grid. Help residential consumers connect to local contractors and review and analyze contractor recommendations regarding cost, payment, and other relevant factors. On to page 3. The program shall advise residential consumers in person as necessary, and over time, recognizing that hands-on coaching may help be needed. Recognizing that hands-on coaching help may be needed at a consumer's home and over several years. Provide ongoing state funding to support the operation of community-based energy coaching programs and use available grant funds and private partnerships to support program implementation. On before March 1st, 2027, the department shall submit a report on the program design to the House Committee on Energy and Digital Infrastructure and the Senate Committee on Natural Resources and Energy. The report shall include a description of the design of the program, which could include the creation of a pilot program or expansion and support of existing community-based programs. A description of the technical assistance and educational materials to be developed as part of the program. An estimate of program costs, funding sources to provide ongoing support to community-based energy coaching programs. A target number of residential consumers to be served by the program, energy and emission savings that will result from the program, and a proposed timeline for the implementation of the program. On to page 4, as introduced, the bill did have 2 appropriations, but this version changes what the appropriations are. So in fiscal year 2027, the sum of $25,000 is appropriated from the general fund to the Department of Public Service to hire the third-party consultant for the Energy Navigator report. In fiscal year 2027, the sum of $10,000 is appropriated to the general fund for the Climate Economy Action Center to collaborate with the Department of Public Service on the Energy Navigator program design. And it takes effect on July 2027. I did want to check about that, how the appropriations were phrased.
Yeah. I think the appropriations are phrased fine.
Okay.
I just, picked these numbers, so I don't know if they're the right numbers.
I do have one question, something, and I think it's actually a question from Snre. I am wondering, just actually at the very beginning, so talking about it as contractor with a third party consultant. You like the can you just elaborate on that? Like, because this is in line with what you're doing. So you're hiring a consultant. It's not you, it's not someone from within the department that's already doing this work. You're asking, and does that contract already exist?
For the affordability study.
Yes, for the work that you're
Not
doing.
yet.
Not yet, okay.
The RFP will be issued next week.
Okay.
And you should get a contracting, I'm hoping within a month or so.
Okay, and so this is something that could be added on to that
Yes,
contract, should this go through?
yeah, that was not trying to presuppose what the committee was envisioning, but I thought it would sort of be like a phase 2 kind of
Okay,
thing.
gotcha. Okay, that's helpful. Thoughts? Yes, go ahead.
It don't make a lot of sense to me, and the question, I think the other question is whether we, those numbers are what we do with that.
Mhm,
Because we'll just spend on the appropriations,
mhm.
on the other hand. So I guess let's just start with this, take out dollars altogether. Or leave these numbers in, or put something different, I don't know.
Yeah,
It's okay.
I was gonna say, the bill will go to appropriations regardless, because the original bill had appropriations in it, and so even if we take them out, it will have to stop there.
And, I'm sorry,
Go ahead, no, you
I
go.
was gonna say, and no doubt, the appropriations committee will just take out that section anyway.
Yeah,
Oh, right, okay.
and leave it for the budget.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll probably add contingency language, if it wants, we could add a contingency language that says, this program, the report is due contingent on the funding being passed in the big budget. What we've been doing some.
Well, one thing I would say about that is, since Alex said that the department would find a way to do it
Okay.
anyway, maybe raising funds through grants or other sources, I would make that contingent language so contingent.
Okay.
You know what I mean, like. Yeah, I would just say that if they can get money through the budget, that would be the best option. If they can't. And they think they can still move forward with it, I wouldn't want to say, no, they don't have to do it, there's no appropriation, does that make sense? Yeah.
So I would love to vote this out today, if possible. I was thinking about the contingency language, because I agree, I don't think we should add, I don't think we need to add anything. But I guess I'm making a note for the future, for when we know a bill that we know has an appropriation that is gonna have to come out. Either we should remember to add that. At this stage, or it could be a thing that just gets added in appropriations.
That is often what happens,
Right.
when something passes out of appropriations, that's just usually one of the amendments we might make is.
Yeah,
We take money up, it adds.
yeah,
But you just remember to.
I get exactly.
Be careful.
So, you know,
Yes,
yes, right.
So this is now the case, we don't,
Right,
Right,
right, yes.
so I'll make the motion.
Okay.
That we approve of that road or languages. S 219, draft 1.3, dated 2/27/26. 10:09 AM and I.
Okay,
All right, ready?
any further discussion? Okay, yeah, go ahead, all the roll.
Okay, Senator Beck, yes, Senator Baumgart.
Yes.
Senator Hardy,
Yes.
Senator Williams.
yes,
Senator Watson.
Yes.
Thank you all. That was great. Thank you, Alec.
Yes.
Really appreciate it. Thanks, Ellen.
Will you be reporting it?
You're,
If, yeah. that'd be
yes,
Great.
okay.
Your job.
Yeah. Over on the, right, yes, there's not a lot of space for the check, but. Okay, huzzah. Super. Okay. Thank you, okay, now,
I will do that right now. Perfect, thank you.
we do have a little bit of time, I believe, we did. Can I just check with you real quick?
This is not just
Oh, okay.
Okay.
We do have, we did add a last minute witness for today on S 247 Bell Plastics, and it is just for educational purposes, so, just so we can learn a little bit more, that's, that is. And I don't think that is gonna happen until, oh, thank you. Alex. Yep, you're good, thank you so much. And so she's not joining us until 11:15, so we have a break until 11:15. Okay, super.
Take up my first.
Okay, great. And license, can I see it close to the door? Okay, thank you so much. All right, so this is Senate Natural Resources and Energy, coming back from break. And we are joined today by Renee Sharp from NRDC. And talking about S 247. Just to remind ourselves, it's about plastics, has three aspects, plastics. And would welcome any thoughts you like to share with us, and if you could go ahead and introduce yourself.
Wonderful. Well, good morning. I think it's still morning there where you are.
It is, yes, technically. A little well.
Great. And thank you, Chair and members of the committee, for the opportunity to testify in support of S 247 today. And thank you, Senator Watson, also for your leadership in authoring this important bill. My name is Renee Sharp, and I'm a senior scientist and the director of plastics and petrochemical advocacy at the Natural Resources Defense Council, NRDC, a national environmental advocacy organization. As the chair mentioned, this bill tackles three important issues related to plastics and health. It prohibits chemical conversion in the state. It phases out the toxic chemical DHP from certain medical devices, and it phases out key uses of microbeads in personal care and cleaning products. And so as such, my testimony will be in three parts. So number one, chemical conversion is a toxic fall solution to the plastics crisis and should not be allowed in Vermont. For decades, the plastic industry has promised that recycling would solve the problem of plastic waste, yet the US plastic recycling rate continues to hover around 5%. But now the industry is unfortunately doubling down on its deceptive recycling claims, promoting incineration and other toxic methods of end-of-life plastic management under the misleading term chemical recycling. Also, greenwashed by the industry as advanced recycling or molecular recycling, all kinds of different terms. And this bill refers to this set of technologies as chemical conversion. But the truth is these approaches largely fail to recycle plastic, and their expanded use will only lead to more toxic pollution of our air and water and more plastic waste in landfills and incinerators. And meanwhile, the production of new plastic will only continue to grow unrestricted because the public's concerns could be eased by this new promise of so-called chemical recycling. And this term is used by the industry to refer to a number of different technologies that include pyrolysis, gasification, solvolysis, and solvent-based purification. But the industry, however, is really just pushing one of these technologies above all else, which is pyrolysis. And this single technology accounts for 80% of all operating and proposed facilities in the US. And pyrolysis, along with gasification, is a form of incineration with serious toxic impacts and is regulated as such under the Federal Clean Air Act. Yet pyrolysis can't recycle much, if any, plastic. A 2023 study by scientists from the Department of Energy's National Renewable Energy Lab, NREL, found that when pyrolysis is used to process plastic waste, only 0.1 to 6% of this plastic waste can actually become new plastic. And they concluded that, quote, the economic and environmental metrics of pyrolysis and gasification are currently 10 to 100 times higher than virgin polymers. In other words, it would be cheaper and environmentally preferable to just make plastic from virgin fossil fuels than to try to use pyrolysis or gasification to turn plastic waste into new plastic products. And what this process mostly produces is fuels, yet fuel production and use do not constitute recycling. And what's more, these fuels can be highly toxic. In 2023, the US EPA approved 18 new chemical mixtures derived from plastic waste for use as fuels, even though EPA scientists had determined that some of these chemicals pose astoundingly high cancer risks. One of the chemical mixtures intended to be used as jet fuel was estimated to pose a 1 in 4 cancer risk, meaning that 1 in 4 people regularly exposed to it throughout their life would develop cancer likely. The EPA later rescinded the approvals and is reassessing the chemicals. At the same time, the pyrolysis process creates large amounts of hazardous waste. EPA reporting data shows that between 2021 and 2024, just 3 pyrolysis facilities that were processing plastic waste generated more than 2 million pounds of hazardous waste and shipped it off-site for disposal. And if all the 26 facilities that were proposed or under construction a year ago were actually built and put into operation, this could mean between 624,000 and 10.8 million additional pounds of hazardous waste generated in, transported through, and disposed of in communities across the country. And while there are very few operational chemical conversion facilities in the US, fewer than 10, more than 1/3 of all states have at least one proposed or currently operating facilities. And these facilities tend to be sited in low-income communities or communities of color. And even communities without such facilities could still be impacted due to the transportation of hazardous waste. Hazardous waste generated by the 3 pyrolysis facilities I mentioned traveled through 13 states on the way to disposal facilities, putting even more communities at risk. And I think that the dangers of accidents, derailments, and other transportation-related releases of hazardous materials should be clear to you all, given the February 2023 train derailment in East Palestine, Ohio. And while solvent and chemical-based methods of chemical recycling are more likely than pyrolysis to actually recycle some amount of plastic, as opposed to burning it or turning into fuels, these processes also pose serious health and environmental concerns. Solvent-based purification and solvolysis, for example, use chemicals linked to neurotoxicity, respiratory toxicity, cancer, developmental harm, and other health hazards. And not only do these technologies often use toxic solvents and chemical agents, but in some cases, they also generate significant quantities of hazardous waste. Chemical processing is a false solution to our plastic problem. It doesn't halt the deluge of plastic waste, and it creates new harms. And policymakers like yourselves should instead focus on real solutions to the plastic crisis, like reducing plastic production and use, switching to more environmentally sound materials, eliminating the most toxic plastics and chemical additives, and building a robust infrastructure for non-toxic reuse return systems. This bill would be an important step forward, as it would make sure that no chemical conversion facilities are built or operated in the great state of Vermont. All right, so that's number one. Number two is that the second part of my testimony about the second part of the bill is that toxic chemicals do not belong in medical devices. And I understand that you've already heard some testimony about DHP in this part of the bill, so I'll keep my comments on this provision relatively brief, but I'm really happy to see this provision in the bill that would ban the intentional addition of DHP to medical solution containers such as IV bags and medical tubing made with this toxic chemical. As you may know, some IV bags contain up to 40% DHP by weight, and IV tubing can contain up to 80% DHP by weight. So we're not talking about a small additive. It can be actually the bulk of the product. And research has found that this chemical can leach from the bags and tubing into the medication and other fluids being infused into the bloodstream of patients. And this chemical has been linked to a wide range of health effects, including breast, liver, lung, and testicular cancer, decreased testosterone and infertility in men, impaired brain development, and metabolic disorders such as obesity and type 2 diabetes. And the human health harms have been long recognized, in some instances for over 35 years. DHP has been listed as a carcinogen by California since 1988 and as a reproductive and developmental toxin since 2003. And the American Medical Association, the American Academy of Pediatrics, and others have issued policies that encourage hospitals to phase out of PVC medical devices, especially those containing DHP. And even 20 years ago, the FDA issued a public health notification advising healthcare professionals to switch to non-DHP medical devices. And the fact is that safer and cost-effective alternatives to DHP exist and are already in use. They have been used in medical devices for well over 4 decades. Kaiser Permanente, the major hospital chain, converted its entire hospital system to DHP IV bags and tubing in 2012. The transition took only 6 months and actually saved them $5 million in actual costs. And across Europe, DHP IV bags have been the standard practice for decades and are now considered a market expectation. And Vermont has the opportunity to join California and the European Union, which have already enacted bans on DHP and IV bags and tubing. And the bill's provisions would take effect in 2030 for IV bags and 2035 for IV tubing. And this aligns with California's law, which also includes these same deadlines. And while most uses of DHP are already prohibited in Europe, the EU's most recent action to ban the use of DHP in medical devices also comes into full effect into 2030. So it's really, the time is now, Vermont. We really hope that you're a leader. All right, so now the third part of my testimony is time to get plastic microbeads out of consumer products. As you all probably know, microplastics are everywhere in our environment. These tiny and sometimes microscopic particles of plastic are in our air, our water, our soil, our food, in lakes and rivers and oceans. And they're also in our bodies, with scientists finding them everywhere from the human heart and brain to testes and placentas. And there's a growing concern that microplastics could be harming ecological and human health, in particular digestive, reproductive, and respiratory systems. And the magnitude of the crisis demands an efficient and effective approach to phase out unnecessary uses of plastic, especially primary microplastics that are intentionally added to other products. And one such unnecessary use is microbeads in personal care and cleaning products. There are many alternatives to microbeads that can be used in these products, including sea salt and sugar crystals, ground nut shells and seeds, clay minerals, and even rice bran and ground oatmeal. And as further evidence that it's possible to phase out the use of microbeads, consider the Microbead Free Waters Act passed by the federal government in 2015, which amends federal law to phase out the use of microbead exfoliants in all rinse-off cosmetics and over-the-counter drugs such as toothpaste. And the law has been fully in effect since 2019. And although this law was a really important step in the right direction, it did not address, unfortunately, the microbeads present in leave-on cosmetics and personal care products, or the use of them in products, in these products for purposes other than exfoliation. Hawaii has addressed these issues with the passage of a 2022 law, which prohibited the sale and manufacture of personal care products that contain these microbeads in 2024. And this law covered leave-on cosmetics and personal care products and microplastics that have been added for reasons beyond just abrasion or exfoliation. And this law is important because in the rest of the US, microplastics can still be added to these same products for other kinds of uses beyond abrasion, and can also be added for any use in leave-on personal care and cosmetic products such as lotion and lipstick. And evidence suggests that even when personal care products are rinsed off, nanoplastics can remain on the skin, causing exposure to these particles and the chemicals they contain. And Vermont S247 addresses one of these issues for cosmetics and personal care products, but fails to take action on the other. So it will address the use of microplastics for abrasion and leave-on and cosmetics and personal care products. Will continue to allow microplastics to be added to rinse off or leave-on cosmetics, personal care products for uses other than abrasion and exfoliation. So we actually hope that the bill can actually be can be strengthened. But nevertheless, this bill would really be an important step forward in addressing microplastic contamination by eliminating at least some unnecessary use. So in summary, the world has a plastic pollution crisis. Plastic, as you know, is harming our environment, our communities, and our health. And S247 works to address this crisis in 3 distinct ways, and we hope that you support this important bill. And I'm happy to take any questions if you might have them.
Thank you. Unfortunately, we have to go, but so grateful for your testimony. I actually do have some questions I'd love to chat with you about. So I may email you.
Great.
As somebody who's interested in chemicals and whatnot, like I want to know about the byproducts of pyrolysis. But we're gonna save that for another time. Thank you so much. Really appreciate your testimony. Anything quick from you all? No? Okay. Thank you so